Again, good evening. I'm Craig Gerlach, Superintendent of Schools, and thank you for joining this webinar. This is, quite frankly, a new way of communicating in mass, and it's something that we've been doing here at the district office on a daily basis, multiple times per day. Before we begin, I'm going to run around the table and have the panel introduce themselves, and I'll start with Corey.
Hello, I'm Corey Hirschberner, Assistant Superintendent and Director of Elementary Education.
Hello, I'm Darla Panoski. I am the Elementary Curriculum and Instruction Coordinator.
Hi, I am Liz Potter-Nelson. I am the Secondary Curriculum and Instruction Coordinator.
My name is Connie Meagard, and I'm the Director of Secondary Education.
Brian Casey, Director of Technology.
Again, thank you and welcome. I'm going to give a brief overview of the evening, and then we will have a presentation that Connie and Corey will be giving, and then dialogue from the rest of the committee. Brian Casey will be monitoring the comments via chat. Sarah O'Donnell, our Director of Communications, is also online monitoring those questions as well. So this is going to last 1 hour, and we want to have a nice balance between us giving information and being able to answer as many questions that we can. In the event we don't answer all the questions, we will certainly do so afterwards and get those posted. This is our second webinar in this fashion. Yesterday is Monday. Yes, we had a similar webinar with our staff, and I believe we had approximately 200 staff members at any given time attend that. Again, we had over 300 people sign up for this, and right now we're at 194. You'll note that my mask is off as per the governor's executive order as it relates to face masks. Included in that is the ability to take off a mask as long as we are socially distanced, and we are if you're speaking on a number of issues, but of course it also obviously includes speaking on education. Our school board approved a plan as it relates to reopening school in June. I'm confident you're aware of that plan. And last week we released the phase that we're planning on beginning school. And of course, first and foremost, that plan offers the opportunity for all students or parents to choose for their children to get into a virtually learning program or e-learning. Pre-K through 6 will be going to school face-to-face for those that choose. 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday will be a day of teacher prep as well as an opportunity to deep clean facility. And secondary will be a cohort of AB in that half the class will be coming on Monday and Tuesday and the other on Thursday, Friday. And of course, Wednesday will be similar to the elementary school, where it'll be an opportunity to deep clean the building and provide opportunities for the staff to engage in the prep. Obviously, they'll be very busy this year, as they likely will be involved with e-learning preparation and delivery, as well as face-to-face. That said, I am going to turn this over to Connie and Corey.
Thank you, Craig. Connie and I are going to go through a quick presentation and then jump right into questions. The work that we did to reopen our schools, as well as our work that we've done to create e-learning opportunities, has focused on 3 grounded commitments. And those are safety for our students and our staff, flexibility, because we want to provide parents flexibility in making decisions that are in the best interest of their families, as well as flexibility for students and families to come in and out of e-learning as they desire throughout the year. And then a focus on instruction. So a focus on traditional learning instruction, as well as other opportunities for instruction via e-learning. We have that, and we have a multitude of different opportunities as it pertains to e-learning. So I'm going to let Connie go ahead and jump into what those look like, and then we'll give a few more specifics as we go about the presentation.
So last spring and certainly over the summer, we're well aware that there are some families that are uncomfortable with coming back into the school building for instruction. And we're committed to keeping our families in our district. And we know that we have great potential to expand online learning opportunities for our families to keep them with us in our school district. So at this time, we have 3 different opportunities for families, students who wish to start the school year with an online experience for whatever reason, whether it is medical concerns or just uncomfortable returning back. One of the options is what we're calling flexible e-learning, and that is participating in our blended learning model that Craig just described, except those families would opt out of any face-to-face instruction. In that kind of a scenario, families would choose this particular model if kids would want to keep their current schedule, stay with their class, and have their district teachers. This would also be for families and students who at some point in the year would like to return to the classroom, will feel more comfortable coming into the building. And with this model, you wouldn't lose a step because you're already involved with your class, you're accessing the curriculum and the instruction from your classroom teacher, from your schedule that you're receiving at the beginning of the year. The other model is our online learning center, which in the past, we've had that as an opportunity for the past 10 years. In the past, students have accessed that to take a course that might not be offered at the secondary level, for medical or certain circumstances that might have come, for credit recovery, to take out online class because they have a schedule conflict. We have now expanded our online learning center in Stevens Point to include a K-12 programming. These would be for families who are quite certain that they're not comfortable coming back to buildings for the 2021 school year, and that online learning center is an option to stay in our district. That curriculum is a little different. We're associated with Wisconsin E-Network. Those are standard-based curriculum, a highly regarded program, and so that is another option for families. The final option, which isn't accessible right now, but I just wanted people to be aware that we are a member of the Rural Virtual Academy. We joined that 2 years ago. We do have students involved in that program and have for some years. That program has reached its capacity and did so, quite frankly, last spring. But I did include that in the grid that outlines our opportunities, just so people are aware that in Stevens Point, we do have K-12 e-learning options for families beginning this fall.
So what can families expect with e-learning? Consistent instruction, coaching, and support from district teachers, or if in the online learning center, when teachers. They can expect learning targets, and they can expect, if in the district program, a program that is consistent with our curriculum and our standards and our expectations. Communication, ongoing support, and expectations that are developmentally appropriate depending on the grade level that each student is in. We learned a lot from e-learning last spring. We learned that we need to focus on best practices. We need to utilize our grade level teams. There's content learning experiences that need to be put into place. And we know that staff provided us a lot of feedback on how that went, and families provided us a ton of feedback on how that went. So we've learned from that, and we feel that our experiences with e-learning this year are going to be very different than they were last spring.
In terms of curriculum, families that are choosing to be a part of the online learning center and will be working with Wisconsin E-Network. That curriculum doesn't necessarily match our district curriculum, but as I mentioned before, it is very much standards aligned and highly regarded as a curriculum, as an online program. If parents would be choosing the flexible blended model. They are going to be actually using the district curriculum because they are actually a part of their class. They're just not opting into face-to-face instruction. One of the things we've learned is that we need to use consistent learning platforms, and we are working on that. Schoology, Seesaw, Google platform, and then the Wisconsin e-network curriculum is used as a part of the online learning center. And of course, devices will be provided to all of our students in the district.
Assessment and feedback will happen through e-learning. That could happen through digital content or real-time content. There will be formative and summative assessments that will help teachers to direct what sort of engaging learning activities need to take place. So we're going to be monitoring progress. There'll be feedback that will be ongoing to students and families through Schoology, through Seesaw, and Google platforms. There will be expectations laid out for students. They will be required to participate in ongoing communication and discussions that are outlined from the instructor. Some of which, again, will be in real time, and some will be through maybe video conferencing into the classroom, but it will not mimic a virtual classroom operating on a bell-to-bell schedule. So again, lots of feedback from the teacher and to and from families. Grading, which is going to be very different than it was last spring. We're going back to the traditional grading. So at the secondary level, the A, B, C, D, F, and then at the elementary level, the traditional grading of the 1, 2, 3, or 4.
We can continue to support our students with IEP 504 plans through e-learning. Students will have a case manager, and there will be plenty of opportunities to have synchronous instruction with not only case managers, but specific special education teachers. IEPs will be followed and modifications made as needed. Supporting students in an e-learning environment, I think all of us as educators and certainly as families realized that that's a very different environment. Organization is critical. Keeping students in a place with a schedule and a place to learn is really important. And also the connection with the teacher, we have learned, is absolutely critical. Students do need educators monitoring them, making sure they're on progress, and then jumping in when they need those additional supports. And regardless of the learning model that takes place, all of our students for K through 12 will be onboarding and spending quite a bit of time to make sure that socially and emotionally students are ready to come back into the classroom. They've come from a variety of experiences. Relationship building will be our top priority. Welcoming our kids back into school and teaching them the expectations for safety will be happening from day one.
So we know that some parents have already asked the question, if my child takes part in e-learning at any point during the year, can they still partake in clubs and activities? And the answer to that is yes. We will continue clubs and activities. All students can take part in those. We will be requiring social distancing and safety measures while clubs and activities are taking place. We are asking that e-learning students partake in person, and virtual participation cannot be guaranteed at this time. It may happen, but at this point cannot be guaranteed. We're working to develop ways to get students into the buildings on days that they may not be there in the blended cohort model. So we're working with our transportation department to find ways to provide shuttle services in different locations throughout the community to bring students back into our buildings. Another important thing to note is we just found out this week that there have been some recent waivers provided by the federal government. We're waiting for the state to also approve those waivers, which will allow us to continue some food service opportunities for families when students may not be in our buildings in a traditional setting. Grab and go meals will be provided throughout August up to August 20th. And if families are in need of assistance, they're really encouraged to apply for free and reduced lunch or fee waivers if they're experiencing any hardship.
So I'd like to share just what were the foundation building blocks of creating this blended model that we have chosen to start the school year with. From a secondary perspective, we knew that at a school of 1,500, such as SPASH, 850 at Ben Franklin and PJ at 650, we cannot have all students back and be able to social distance. So we literally divided our school population in those buildings in half and did it through last name. We started by making sure that the demographics of each of those cohorts, A through L, M through Z, matched so that we had similar demographics when each cohort was participating in a face-to-face instruction. What that would look like as a teacher is I am going to be spending Wednesdays with my colleagues, and I'm going to be creating my virtual classroom for the next week. Students will access instruction and activities from that virtual classroom, and when they come to school on those 2 days, that is a time for our smaller class sizes, for reteaching, for individualized instruction, for small group discussions, for hands-on labs. In essence, every single class at PJ, Ben, SPASH, PODS, and the alternative school, the size of those classes have cut in half. So the kids can, in the classroom, social distance, and kids can have some face-to-face instruction. And that is what the foundations for the blended model look like. From an elementary, from a K-12 perspective, we chose Wednesday as that time to build curriculum, to give students an opportunity to work on schoolwork, catch up, study. And it provides Wednesdays for a time where all families are home, should just some of our younger kids need childcare by older siblings.
So we know that some families have already decided to go ahead and sign up for e-learning, either the flexible e-learning to be determined by quarter or the full year online learning center. But we also know there's lots of parents who are still trying to decide. We're asking if families could let us know by Monday the 17th. That would really help us with planning purposes, but we also know that you may need just a little bit more time to continue to monitor numbers in the county and make decisions for your family. So if you could let us know by the 17th, we would really appreciate that. But if you need a little bit more time, go ahead and take that. We are asking you to complete the opt-in form, which is available in the slide deck that has been shared in the chat. If you need further assistance and your questions don't get answered this evening or in other communications, feel free to contact any one of us here tonight or contact Bliss Educational Services Department, and we'd be happy to answer your questions.
Okay, we're going to start the interactive part of tonight's discussion. We have questions that have been submitted online by those attending and viewing remotely. We're going to try and answer as many questions as possible. If we don't answer your question, fear not. Sarah is recording the questions, and we will attempt to answer every question that people have submitted. One of the questions that came through is this recording going to be available? It will be posted to the school YouTube channel, which is also accessible on the website, perhaps tonight, but certainly by tomorrow. You can find this recording of the event as well as the presentation that was shared today that's linked in the chat and also available on the webpage. I'm going to start with just a few clarifying questions I think that could help before we start. One of our attendees asked, what is a cohort? Great
question. So a cohort is a group of students that, so I'll use an elementary example and then we can talk about the secondary example. So a cohort of students at the elementary level would be considered a homeroom group of students. So if I'm a third grade teacher and I have, 21 students in my classroom is my homeroom group of cohort students. At the secondary level, we're speaking of cohorts as that A through L and M through Z. So those are the cohorts at the secondary level in grades 7 through 12.
We had another clarifying question. We could explain the difference between the OLC, the Online Learning Center, and RVA, the Rural Virtual Academy.
The Online Learning Center is our local online program. We take some courses from the Wisconsin e-Network and offer them through our Online Learning Center. We also have teachers that above and beyond their school day offer some courses through our Online Learning Center. Rural Virtual Academy is a consortium of about 30 schools in central Wisconsin, and they have their own curriculum, their own teachers. We just are a part of that, and we have our students can access that particular program. It's off-site, housed in Medford, but kids are taking those courses online.
When will schedules be available for SPASH students?
Schedules are being developed and are available starting next week. Students are going in for registration and when they'll pick up their schedules.
The question about video and synchronous instruction. Will there be virtual classrooms so kids are actually watching the classes? If not, why not?
So delivery will vary by grade and will be determined by teachers, but we are asking our staff to provide some synchronous sessions throughout their planning. So yes, there will be. What that looks like exactly is going to take a little bit more time. Our staff are not back in our buildings yet, and we're really working to collaborate with them to set this up so that it works for grade level teams. So you can expect there to be more information coming from your child's building as well as your child's teachers as to what that will look like.
What preparation have teachers been provided for this fall to do online teaching? Will the online teachers be the same as the blended learning teachers? And how will teachers have time for that?
From a secondary perspective, our teachers this last spring had to pivot and start teaching virtually. They weren't necessarily trained, and wasn't their level of expertise. Our teachers chose to teach face-to-face instruction. So that was a learning curve and a large learning curve. Teachers did learn quite a bit last spring. We are offering some professional development on the learning platforms on how students can really access material and how teachers can provide more video and other different ways to deliver their activities, their instruction. So we're working on that. Teachers that are teaching in the Rural Virtual Academy or the Wisconsin e-Network, those are teachers that chose to teach online. So they do have some more expertise than we do, but we're certainly learning and we're providing professional development for our staff.
In addition to that, the Wednesdays will also be utilized for time for teachers to prep and to collaborate together as well as focus on creating those e-learning lessons for the upcoming weeks. So they will have time on those Wednesdays when students are not in our buildings physically, but doing online activities at home. They will utilize that time to plan and prepare for e-learning lessons.
Okay, we have a question about enrolling in online learning. What happens if we choose the full year, however, we wanted to do the flexible learning?
If you signed up for the year and you want to do the flexible, I think it would be best for you to just call our Educational Services Department and we can make that change for you. The number is 715-345-5466.
Okay. Another question about the flexible versus the opt-in e-learning. Who teaches the year-long e-learning? What materials are used and who are they developed by?
So I can speak to the elementary and Connie will jump in for secondary. We are working with the Wisconsin e-network, and the Wisconsin e-network is fairly new with elementary curriculum. So they do not have teachers available to teach the courses that they provide. Most of their courses come from the Florida Virtual School, and we just recently learned that we are going to have to provide some of our teachers to do that. So we have some teachers that might not be able to come back into our buildings for specific reasons. So we are going to be utilizing some of those individuals to help connect with those families and work with the WEN curriculum and the students that have opted into the e-learning for the entire year. So you will get district teachers, but an alternative curriculum. At the secondary level, that's different because WEN has been involved in secondary curriculum for a little bit longer.
Our curriculum and instructors are through Wisconsin e-network and have been for some time, as our online learning center has been in operation for some time. But we also do have some of our district teachers, a growing number of our district teachers, who are teaching some of those courses through our online learning center, and they're choosing to do that above and beyond their normal contracted day. But most of the teachers are through Wisconsin e-network.
Okay, we have a question about preview materials. Is there an opportunity to preview the online e-learning before deciding? And if so, are there any links to a demo class?
That's a really good question. Darla, do you know the answer to that?
I do not. That is a really good question. We are just now working on it and working through the different tasks that we have to do on the back end of being a part of the Wisconsin e-network. So I will definitely find out.
There's a link off of the SPASH website for the Online Learning Center. On that, you can see the application for the Online Learning Center as well as the list of courses, and it's extensive. There's quite a few courses, so feel free to go to that again. Go to the SPASH website, and you'll find the link for the Online Learning Center.
We have a question about support for e-learning. Is a student able to go into class if they need help? I think what they mean is if there's someone learning in full-time e-learning or blended, are they able to physically go in to get help? And if so, when?
This question has come up on parents saying, I choose to do the flexible e-learning. In other words, I'm going to keep my current student schedule. I'm going to access each one of those classes. My student's going to access all of that curriculum instruction, but not come for those face-to-face sessions. As much as we would love to say, yes, you can come into class and the question was, can I come in and attend this particular class or that particular class? We had to divide up our student body for a reason, and we had to make sure that our class sizes were cut in half. So if we open up the doors, we're actually going against the safety protocols that we needed to put in place and were suggested by Portage County Health and Human Services. So at this time, we couldn't just open up the doors.
What are some of the ways that students working at home would be able to get support from their teachers?
What we're expecting is for if you are doing the flexible e-learning, that our teachers, as we mentioned, Wednesday is going to be reserved for teacher prep for curriculum instruction, but there also is going to be a designated amount of time. If teachers do have flexible e-learning students in their classroom, that will be open office hours.
Okay, we have a question about elective classes. As a parent of a ninth grader, how will elective classes, cooking, choir, art, work in e-learning?
It's going to be creative. In a culinary arts classroom, in a tech ed classroom, those students who are coming at that face-to-face time will have time to do those hands-on projects. It's not going to be the same as coming every single day. Obviously, the teachers are going to have to pick and choose some of those high-level labs, the most important essential power standards they want kids to meet. So in those kinds of lab classes, when kids are coming to class, they will have some of that hands-on time for projects and labs. For music, we did purchase some programs for our music teachers that they requested last spring. We're going to continue to work on how music and specifically music classes, how we can adjust that curriculum to make sure it's safe for kids.
I have another question here. How do you envision quarterly e-learning students participating and building a relationship with their class at the elementary level?
So we would do some of the synchronous opportunities. So if students were at home and we had some activities taking place in their specific homeroom, there might be an opportunity for them to live stream into some of those activities. So we're wanting those flexible elementary kids to be as much a part of their homeroom, even though they're not physically in those buildings. So teachers would keep them connected with activities going on and opportunities to visit with other students and to take place in discussion with other students throughout the day. It wouldn't be just a webcam live streaming the classroom for the entire day. It would be more scheduled and organized synchronous learning sessions when appropriate and depending on the age and grade.
Another question in the elementary area. What kind of support will elementary students get during the day if their teacher is also teaching an in-person class? So how do they balance trying to support students at home as well as teaching the students they have in class?
Yep. So again, we're waiting for our teachers to come back because I really believe that grade level teams are going to be better at working out the specifics of this than we are here sitting at Bliss. So I'm anticipating some grade level teams to say, you know what, let's divide and conquer these responsibilities. So they might be sharing some of the teaching load with students that are physically in the buildings in a traditional environment. And then someone else may be responsible for connecting with those e-learning students once in a while. And then the teacher would be doing that as well. We also have lots of other support personnel within the buildings that may be helping to make connections with those students that are in an e-learning format.
Okay, a question about the OLC. Let's see if I can find it there. Is the OLC recorded? Is it all pre-recorded, or what exactly is the format for the OLC?
Well, the Online Learning Center has taken courses from Wisconsin eNetwork, and like our experience in the spring, some of those courses are some of them are recorded, some are flipped classroom, some enhanced video, some have synchronous. It really depends on the course and the course that particular teacher has developed. So I can't say that there's a consistent format on how those courses are delivered.
I think the next question for us here. How does registration work for e-learning? I think what they're asking is how they pick courses. I mean, do they register the same way if they want to do full-time flexible e-learning?
If students and families are interested in the Online Learning Center, there is an application, and we do have a coordinator, Dana Breed, who then works with families on what courses to select, particularly making sure that students are selecting courses that fit their 4-year plan and the district requirements for graduation.
Okay, we have a question about grading and assessment. Can you tell us more about how e-learning kids will be assessed? Will they be taking assessments at home? Do they need to be proctored? Is it a state assessment, or did the district purchase a program? Also, thanks for working on this.
At the secondary level, we have put a moratorium on our local assessments, which are MAP and our district writing assessment. At this time, again, our our priority is getting our students back and face to face with their teacher and onboarding into back into the building. In terms of the online courses, again, those are developed by the Wisconsin E-Network. They have some assessments that are built into their courses, and not necessarily a requirement for those assessments to be proctored.
I have a secondary question again, too. If a student has a more difficult course, are they allowed to opt for that course fully in person and the other coursework online? Is there a choice? I guess, you know, if they had an AP class, for example, could they opt to have that one as their in-person class and the others online?
We do have families that would be choosing a blended model, but may choose 2 to 4 classes that would be online learning center. That would be, again, a question for our online learning coordinator, but we have in the past students, even before COVID, that were taking some face-to-face classes and some online learning center classes.
Okay. I got a question about when more information will be available on virtual learning, and that would impact the parents' decision. Do we discuss when more information will be available?
We will share information as it becomes available. Specifically at the elementary level, we've been working with them, but they're very new to the elementary curriculum. So as Darla's been involved in several meetings, so as soon as we get information, we'll continue to share that. Once our teachers get back in our buildings and we're able to sit down and collaborate with them and work out more specifics, we'll continue to share more information as it becomes available in that regard as well.
Okay, question on teacher professional development. Will teachers continue receiving training and development throughout this school year for e-learning delivery of curriculum?
Absolutely. We've got, some training planned at the beginning of the year around our learning management systems, but we want to make sure that we provide our teachers with whatever support they need to do e-learning. So we'll listen to what they're telling us that they need. We know that their jobs are going to look very different this year. So we will do whatever we need to do to get them the tools and the resources and support that they need to do the best job that they can.
Okay. In the flexible model, are teachers individually responsible for creating all online content, or are there core lessons that teachers across the district will use at a grade level?
So at the elementary level, what we're going to do is our instructional leaders in the next week or two are going to meet and determine what those power standards are for each grade level. Once the instructional leaders get those determined, we're going to gather input from every grade level teacher, K through 6. Once we get an agreement on those power standards, then we'll start creating those activities, those traditional in-person lesson plans and activities, as well as our e-learning. And again, I'm foreseeing us being able to share and divide and conquer a lot of that work. We won't have to do it in silos or alone. We'll collaborate by building. We'll collaborate by grade level teams as well as across the district, so that if there's a 3rd grade teacher at Bannock that is really making some good connections with kids and creating engaging lessons, that we're able to share those across all the other buildings. So we did that last year and it worked really well, and we're continuing to plan for that in the coming weeks.
One of the great things about using WebEx and also with Schoology is the fact that we can successfully and pretty easily collaborate across the district without having to travel and have a meeting place. And not only did we do that this spring, but our plans are for some of those Wednesdays, not all of them, but occasionally getting grade levels across the district together collaborate and to brainstorm and problem solve.
At the secondary level, we are asking our content teams and our course teams to work together. They will be identifying their key power standards for the quarter, for the unit, and then they will be collaboratively designing lessons to share, whether it is a biology lesson or an algebra lesson. And so they will determine within that content team where their strengths are and work collaboratively to determine assessments or projects or lessons. And so they're going to use those Wednesday times as content teams to really dive into that information. So there should be similarities at the secondary level.
Okay, I have a question from a parent. Hi, trying to understand flexibility as a full-time employee. If I'm unable to assist my child, which option is more flexible? Do not want my child to be penalized due to our inability to assist. I think what they're getting at is the frustration a lot of parents had with trying to parent, trying to work, and then also trying to help students online with their assignments and their work.
I think if you're looking for flexibility and you're wanting to have the ability to possibly go from e-learning into a traditional and then traditional back to e-learning, the option would be the flexible e-learning. If you know that, you know what, you are just not comfortable with sending your child back to school at all this year, then I would definitely opt into the OLC. I feel like that's going to be a better option for you, and it's probably easier to start that right from the start of the year rather than joining in, at semester or quarter.
Wisconsin eNetwork and our OLC has used the curriculum and their teachers for some time. These are teachers that have been working in an online environment for quite some time. So they are well aware that online students need as much support and monitoring as students in a classroom. So there are, those are folks that have specifically been trained as online teachers. In addition, some of those teachers in the Online Learning Center are our own teachers that also are well aware that just putting out online content is not enough. We need to monitor students. We need to collaborate with students in an online. We need to check in with students. So those are options that we do in terms of that are on us to make sure kids are progressing.
I have a question here. Why don't you just have the classes go bell to bell and have the classes done like a WebEx? I think what is being asked here is why not just live stream every single class so that a student at home is just watching the class every hour according to the bell schedule?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's developmentally appropriate for a student just to sit in front of a computer and watch a live stream for multiple hours in a row. Our intent is to create engaging lessons that are meaningful, that are, easily accessible. I think, as an adult, it's really difficult for me to stay engaged if I'm just watching a live stream video. So our plan is to make sure that those activities are connected to what the child actually needs, and isn't just, a video per se that would be addressing their educational needs.
What is a grade level team? Are all teachers at a grade within a building or within the district?
So grade level teams are by building and by district. So I would say probably maybe one time every month or every other month, we would probably meet as a district-wide team. And beyond that, then grade level teams at each building would be meeting. And sometimes I know that grade level teams like to meet with the grade level below them, and they like to meet with the grade level above them, because it's also important to make sure that our curriculum is not only aligned horizontally, but we're aligning our curriculum vertically.
If teachers are choosing their own way of presenting the material, who is holding them accountable for the quality and amount of education and curriculum they are providing?
So I think we're all responsible for that. I think that the teachers are responsible for that. Administration is responsible for monitoring that. And I would hope that if, a parent feels like their child may not be as engaged as we all hope, that they're providing that teacher some feedback as well. As a teacher, I would want to know if a parent felt like their children needed more or needed less, and I would be able to work and accommodate that just as we would in a traditional learning environment. So keeping those lines of communication open at all times is really, really important.
As an example, going to the previous question, a course team at the secondary level would be your your 8th grade science teachers at Ben and PJ, your U.S. history team, which is a team of 6 teachers at SPASH. The expectation on Wednesday is that U.S. history team is meeting and they are developing curriculum that is still our curriculum. We're just going to have to make some adjustments and decide what are the power and big ideas. When we're in a blended environment, obviously we're not going to have as much time with kids as we have in the past, but that doesn't mean that we're just going off of our district curriculum. We're still following our curriculum. We're just going to have to really choose the big ideas and the power standards.
Is it possible to open up the registration for Rural Virtual Academy since it's already well established?
We can't. Honestly, we received information from the Rural Virtual Academy last May that they were full. And they refused to expand that larger if they can't get quality teachers. And they just are at their capacity in terms of the number of teachers they could hire. And so at that point, they're closed. And they're closed to all the districts that are in that consortium.
Will advanced classes be offered through Wisconsin eNetwork?
They do not label courses as advanced through Wisconsin eNetwork, but there are some AP courses that they are offering.
Okay.
I can speak to the elementary. One of the things that we are looking at is the courses that are offered for K-6 are by grade level. And so we're looking into if we have a student that is well beyond their grade level's content, they've mastered that content, can we move them into the next grade level? We're starting to explore that option.
I have a question about electives. So what about electives such as band, jazz band? Will there be auditions? How will classes be handled with e-learning in the blended program?
Right now, for safety reasons, our band and our orchestra and our choirs are not going to be meeting as full groups at this time. So they're going to be probably smaller ensembles. Our music teachers are going to be really creative. Again, our first goal is to get the kids back into the classroom and playing on their instruments, but they're simply not going to be able to practice or perform as a large group, but as smaller ensembles or even smaller lesson times.
Okay, we have a question here regarding e-learning. You are speaking of e-learning. Does e-learning consist of virtual? I think what they're getting at is when we use the term e-learning, do we mean completely online? We use that for Wednesdays, for also part of our blended. Maybe want to define a little bit how we're using the term e-learning?
When we use the term e-learning, we are talking about students are accessing the content and the learning activities virtually. So these are kids that are learning remotely. That's what our term e-learning means.
Yep. For flexible e-learning, are all the teachers committed to having office hours during the week?
At this point, our schedule is going to require so that those teachers have some time within that Wednesday that they're connecting with kids that might be choosing the flexible environment.
Okay, we're running on 5 minutes. We're going to try and get through some last questions. Again, our apologies if we did not get to your question. Tried to roughly go in order that they were submitted. We are recording the questions, and we'll be able to have someone respond to you as well. So within the time that we have, we're going to try and find some questions and get those answered. A question here, will we be providing a list of tutors?
We have not provided a list of tutors that I'm aware of in the past. I know that there are individuals within the community that do tutor, but at this time, we do not have a list of active tutors that are interested in helping students.
How will Maples, and for those out there listening, that is music, art, phy-ed, and library, the special areas in elementary, how will those be handled for elementary students?
So our expectation for Maples teachers at the elementary on Wednesdays is to also be providing and creating some e-learning lessons so that students can take part in those throughout the weeks. So their Wednesdays will be similar to those of homeroom teachers and other teachers in the building, collaborating, planning, preparing for the next week's lessons.
Okay. Getting a flurry of questions here. I'm still unsure how e-learning students would participate in vocal music. Would you be able to clarify this some more? Will there still be concerts, and would the e-learning students be able to participate?
That's a great question that I think has come up, particularly with music, and I sympathize and understand that this is completely different kind of environment. Quite honestly, if that elective and that family didn't feel like that, the e-learning experience, whether it was, whether we bought some software that teachers, it's called Smart Music, that they felt was a really good virtual means to participate in music, but we would be open to students choosing electives if they felt that that kind of a virtual learning experience was not satisfactory.
If I may point out that we are going to start the school year on September 8th with face-to-face and beginner e-learning. We don't know what 2-3 weeks look like into the school year. Quite frankly, we don't know what it's going to look like at the beginning of the school year. So we're going to learn a tremendous amount, and I think we're going to find out there will be answers to some of these very difficult questions, specifically as it relates to music, whether it be instrumental or vocal. We all understand that that's a significant issue as it relates to the spread of COVID and wearing a mask and whatnot. Being a father of a daughter that was extremely involved with music, I get it and feel just terrible in terms of what it looks like as we start the school year. But we will do everything that we can to address the issue of vocal and instrumental music. But it's going to be a learning. It's just going to be a learning process.
I think we can get these last, well, not last, but 2 questions in. If we're starting the school year a year late, are we going to make any adjustments to the curriculum, especially for some of those online learning courses that are designed for an entire semester, or anything else curriculum-wise?
I mean, because of our gradual start.
Yes.
Really, for our flexible e-learning, our teachers, again, I go back to, they're going to be picking out those power standards and adjusting to for students. We are not going to be able to, nor will we, have the same kind of expectations that the content that's covered in a traditional class that we had 2 years ago is going to look the same now. So we're going to have to make adjustments and modifications to curriculum. In terms of the Online Learning Center and Wisconsin e-Network, they are extremely flexible. In some cases, they start courses much later than we do, and kids finish up early because they're on their own time schedule. So in my experience, and I think our coordinator would agree, they're very, very flexible with students in terms of timeline to complete courses.
What is the Wednesday e-learning day going to look like for elementary students? Will it be a catch-up day, or will there be a normal amount of work assigned for them to do?
I wouldn't foresee it being a normal amount of work. I would foresee it being some extension activities, some reteaching activities, some practice of skills that have been taught leading up to that Wednesday. So it wouldn't be as rigorous as the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday would be.
Last question, I think that's all we have time for. What about schedule changes? Students attending face-to-face in the past have been able to make schedule changes as needed. Is there going to be any change to that practice in e-learning?
Well, right now, we've always been really, really flexible with students making schedule changes as long as there's room in the course. Quite frankly, from a flexible and a blended model, we need to get our kids back in classrooms, and we need to assure that the number that are attending, we can safely social distance. So we have to be extremely careful about schedule changes, not to overload classes, so that when half the class comes, it's not, it meets our safety measures and not all of a sudden having 25 kids. I mean, we go into a blended model to avoid and cut those 25 those classes of 25 in half so that we can social distance. So individual buildings will be sending out information about schedule changes, but we're probably going to have to be a little bit inflexible until we know that all of our classrooms are safe and social distancing.
Okay, we are at 7 o'clock. We're not going to field any more questions. As I said, we will do our best. We have some names of attendees and the questions they submitted. If we didn't get to your question, someone will be in touch with you shortly. Any concluding remarks?
First of all, thanks, Brian. We have another meeting tomorrow for families that are interested in a presentation at 5 o'clock for those engaged in 4K6. That'll be followed up by the next day at 6 o'clock for 7-12 families for a Q&A. All I can say is thank you for attending this. This is really difficult. This is challenging. I've been in this business for 35 years, superintendent for 22 years. I haven't seen anything like this. I talk to, as well as those around the table, to our colleagues every day, trying to get an idea of what they're doing in terms of their schools, and we're trying to learn from one another. We are committed to doing the very, very best that we can to meet the needs of all of our children, whether parents or children choose to learn virtually or to go face to face. So we ask for your patience. This is difficult. We're gonna stumble and fall. We're gonna get back up and we're gonna move forward. But I can guarantee it, we are committed, and we're going to do everything that we can to ensure the best education based on these circumstances. I think we all realize it's not normal. It's going to be very different and difficult. But these are your children, and your children are our children within the school system, and we want to do right by you, and we want to do right by them. So please continue to send questions, contact us, via email, phone calls, and we will continue to give information and be transparent as we learn more. Thank you.